that's all right with everybody. It should ask you for permission. Welcome everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Lovely to see you all. Thanks for giving up your time this evening for our follow-up drop-in session. So it's just a follow-up to our recruiting from education session that we ran a couple months ago now. Much more informal. We have got a couple slides just to kind of make sure that everyone's up to speed with what was delivered. But that will only take a couple of minutes, and then it's just going to be a discussion. We'll keep it in this rather than going out into breakout rooms because there's only 6 of you on here, which is good because then we can really get into the nitty-gritty of what you've been doing. So we'll just go into discussion of where you currently are and then the next steps and what actions, and Ben and I can give you some proper bespoke support about where you want to head next. So I'm going to go ahead and try and locate the presentation. I've got loads of windows open. There we go. Ben, let me know if that's not coming up.
So just need to go in. There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
That's good.
Perfect. So welcome everyone. For those of you that don't know us, my name is Lizzie. I'm one of the club developers in the Southwest, and joined by Ben Smith, who is of the same role. So just the classic spiel to get us started. There's only a few of us, so feel free just to come off mute, pop anything in the chat, raise your hand, and just participate actively. Don't worry about jumping in at all. Just ask any questions or any points as we're going. And if you do need to step away, that's obviously absolutely fine. Just let us know. It's all good. So the format and the aims of tonight. So just a summary of the 7-step action plan that was covered in the last session. Understanding where you currently are in that 7-step plan. And then we'll be discussing your successes, opportunities, and challenges. So feel free to share anything that you've done well and anything that you're challenging with, because you never know who on the call has got the vice versa of what you're currently facing. So we'll be able to share loads of best practice, loads of kind of answers that you might have for each other, and just get discussing as much as possible. And obviously feeding back from those discussions, super informal. We'll just pop in and out of gallery mode and presenting as and when. And then just look to establish what's next. So how Ben and I can help you going forward and what your plan is for your club and your education links. And then just collaborating with each other on the call. So summary of the 7-step action plan. Step number 1, you can see on there, identify key contact. So exactly what it says on the tin. Welcome, Chris. So just engaging with the education institution, and this is kind of the most important part. So you just want to make sure that you're contacting the right person, and that would just help you develop a quality link from the start. And the tip that we have for that is just be patient in finding the right contact. Do your research. And remember that, like yourselves, a lot of people that you might be contacting are volunteers, so they might have different priorities. So moving on to step number 2, objectives and principles. Have a face-to-face discussion at this point, obviously over the phone or over Teams is also fine. And just establish your key objectives and principles whilst keeping the focus on the needs of the players involved. And it's really important at this stage that you're really honest and realistic with that contact that you'll have made at the school or college, whatever it may be, and just be really honest and open with them about what you want to achieve and what you can offer. So that leads us into partnership discussion. So consider what you might agree to offer and what you want in return. So make sure that you know this is a two-way partnership. And there's no criteria to go into this with, as each link is unique. So just make sure that you're being flexible in your approach, and just keep that open conversation from those objectives that you've outlined. So a really good opportunity just to have a really in-depth discussion with that partnership and get things moving. So that leads us swiftly into step 4, which is partnership planning. So this is where you start to kind of get into the nitty gritty and the nuts and bolts of it. So agree what the link will be made up of in terms of activity, timing, resources, people. So thinking about that balanced club model that we push, so people, environment and business, and making sure you just got everything covered off. And then also in this stage, it's important to agree timescales, targets, accountabilities, and clearly communicate these. So when you're planning, there's loads of resources on our website that we will share with you in the follow-up, but that leads us into the agreement. So there's templates online for you to record the link agreement. It's really important that you have that written agreement and it's signed just to keep things professional and kind of keep everybody accountable. But just remember that everything that we provide you with is a guide. You've got the flexibility to be creative and include other ideas or parts of it that you might need to suit the needs of that specific club school link that you're making. So on to step 6 of delivery, partnership delivery. So this is the time to put it into action, getting that program up and running. And this is where the RFU and partner agencies, so Irwin Mitchell as an example, have resources to support you and that education link. So that's where you can lean on us and our resources just to help that get off the ground. And finally, comms and review. So regular communication with the link, with the contact, just to make sure that it's all running smoothly and sustainably, making sure that you're keeping in contact, just regular check-ins and kind of the chance to review as you go. So once the link is up and running, regular reviews of the process will help you measure your success and see how you're going. So a bit of a whistle-stop tour is where I don't want to teach you guys to suck eggs because you've probably been on the session already, but that's the 7 steps, just a way to kind of break it down and make it a bit easier for you guys to tick things off as you go. So that's going to lead us into our first poll. So just for our interest, please could you let us know where you currently are on the 7-step action plan? You can see that we've got 0 to 8 as well, because it's absolutely fine if you have no actions taken or if you didn't attend the previous workshop. There's no right or wrong answer with this. So I don't think that I can see the polls, but Ben, if you haven't, please could you already launch that?
Yep, they are up now. People are just clicking on them.
Perfect. So just let us know where you currently are. And this is just going to try and help us shape the discussion of what we've got this evening so that we can just make sure we're tailoring to everybody.
I think that is everyone. So and that and the results should be up now for everyone to see. So quite an even spread across the 7 stages. It was quite good. So it gave us a good discussion and a good leading on for the guys at 1, 2, 3. It'd be really interesting to see where the guys are at 4, 5, 6, 7, and even 8. 4, 6, and 7. How they kind of got to those stages on that. For the guys that didn't attend the first one, it'd be really good information in terms of how we're moving along that kind of pathway on that. So it's a really good point.
Perfect. So appreciate for those of you that didn't attend before, what I've just been talking through might seem a little bit overwhelming, but hopefully once we get into a bit of discussion and it starts to break down a little bit more, then we'll be able to kind of get into where you want to get going from. So that brings us to our first breakout room. We won't go into rooms just because there's enough of us to have a good discussion in the gallery mode. So just reflect on the poll that you've just completed. So for those who are just joining us, we've just gone through the 7 steps from the plan that we discussed at the last session, and just see where you are now, what have been your successes, what are the opportunities, and what have been the key challenges. So I'm going to stop sharing, bring us back into lovely gallery mode. And yeah, over to you guys. So feel free, someone kick us off. Where are you currently, Tony? I've seen you come off mute straight away, so I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, we found it quite difficult to get the right contact at Liskeard School.
Okay.
But we've managed to do that. We've met with Liskeard School, and we currently have 2 coaches in doing a after school club on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We offered them a free mouth guard as a come get us.
Yep.
And thus far, we're having about 40 children at each session, with a view to them coming over to the club. So yes, it is a two-way thing, and hopefully that will prove successful for them to join our club.
Fantastic. And how did you get a hold of that first contact?
We just kept on, and eventually I went into the reception, and got the name and badgered them, and so here we are.
Perfect. So quite literally knocking on the door.
Absolutely, yeah. Because if you email, they tend it doesn't seem so important. They may get back to you or may not. But I think if you're standing at a reception, there's not much they can do other than give you the correct information.
And or call the police, I guess.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Anybody else? Anything similar? Is anybody just ahead or behind in their journey? Henry?
Sorry, I'm sorry for coming in late.
No, not at all.
Can I just clarify that the question is, how have we been interacting with schools initially?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So yeah, we as Anthony said, we tried the email route and it did not work. He's quite right. But we had an inside contact with the school, and it was a daughter of one of the teachers. So we had an in there, and we went and ran we got invited by talking to the PE staff. We got invited to run a couple of sessions as they were doing a taste a month of girls rugby, and so we wanted to just kind of demonstrate that there was a life beyond the school rugby curriculum. I'm not even sure if they've adopted it yet, but that was quite successful. We had a couple of girls join. Unfortunately, it was right in the middle of that lockdown pause, so we've had to kind of regenerate all of that kind of stuff. Ultimately, right now we're struggling to get 13s and 15s, and that's going to be our focus for the next half of this term. And we're going to do that, as Anthony just said, by actually knocking on doors. I think it's the only way. There's not much appetite to change curriculum, as I can tell. I may be wrong, and I'm not a PE teacher, but I think the only way to get that message across is in person. We rely heavily on the girls sending out a message via social media, because they're far more skilled at that than I am, and they all have 400, 500 contacts. So we kind of try and infiltrate the schools that way.
Yeah, it's Tony, Henry. I know it says Anthony out there, but I can't get rid of it. It's Tony. I think my mother had ideas of grandeur.
Perfect. Granville, I can see that you've got your hand up. Just before I bring you in, or feel free to if it's relevant. Has anybody overcome the challenge that Henry's been having in terms of curriculum? I'll come to you first if you want to get involved, Granville.
Move the hand, yeah. Our in was the main school where my kids went to school. So my son played a little bit of rugby there. The head of PE, as he is now, I've always sort of got on with him. So that was the initial brokering conversation. He then gave us the contact details of his optic numbers in the other secondary schools. Similar with the emails, a bit slow for response and everything, though they're all coming back after COVID, back into a sort of like work life.
Yeah.
So the intention was to do a sort of a ripple effect, start off with the one school, see if we could do something, make it sustainable, and then ripple out to the other secondary schools. I had come up with some sort of more detailed plan of gameplay and specific skill bit off to the side, and got the girls coach to come along with me so we could do that sort of dual effect. But in the end, the taster sessions we did during school, where we, had anything from 20 to 40 girls, just basically ended up, going from warm up to swarm type gameplay to add an extra element until by the end of the session, you could see a bit of structure happening and people showing a bit of natural ability. And because it was in school, we had that captive audience. So some turned up in PE kit, some turned up in school uniform. And I said, well, don't worry, we can adapt it so that even the people in school uniform who thought they were going to get away with it can still be involved. And then you could see some of those being infused by it all. So it was definitely targeting specifically girls rather than having a mixed audience. That taster session went down well. Then we organised a further session, which was after school, which had smaller numbers, which I delivered. Had a couple of PE teachers come to watch. And basically, I just let them play, just basically touch union. And anybody that's met me before, I've always banged on before about Ready for Rugby as the perfect medium for engagement, because it's all packaged up, ready to go with, videos, rules. There's no damage potential. Put a few bollards out and you got a ball, just play. So yeah, so that one they just played. The school teacher, got teased running at the club anyway on a Monday. Come down and have a go yourself, so you can feel it for yourself, and then we can deploy it on them as Julie the next time round. So she's been to a couple of sessions. I'm going back there on Thursday after school to deliver with one of the PE teachers an after school session there. And then subsequent to that, I've had a meeting, a physical face-to-face meeting with another PE team at one of the other secondary schools. And they were just lapping it up, proper, wanted it and explained this whole, the way I see it is before the RFU sort of pushed touch rugby out as the sort of like the poor relation out in the cold. And therefore that's all touch league sort of developed with O2 to give it something to do. Whereas now, I think the RFU's realised that they're all part of the same family and they're all stepping stones into the main fold. So actually use touch union as your outreach, as your engagement, because it's there, it's packaged up, it's ready to go. There's no damage potential. You can play it in school, you can do it with adults. It's, what's not to like. So I'm doing an after school session. This one's going to be mixed tomorrow because we now have a gap in our under 15s boys because they've all gone off to another club, big Bright Lights, big city club down the road. So it's next to the whole of an age group. So there's panic stations recruiting that age group. So we're going to do a taster on the after school club. And then we've also got after half term planned already the in-school tasters for girls specific.
Fantastic. So are you heading in yourself quite a lot then? Are you giving quite a lot of hours to this as a coach, or other people involved?
Well, there's the female, the girls under 18s coach. So he did the first in-school session with me. I got this dual head because I got a referee recruitment as well as club recruitment stuff. But the main thing is the participation of the girls, and then now with the boys. So the one tomorrow I'm going to do dually with the under 15s boys coach. The one on Thursday I'm going to do with the other PE teacher because the first one's tied up. But the discussion we had before was she's now actually generating activity within the school, getting the other PE teachers interested in coming down to the over 18s touch union themselves so they can have a slice, and then talking to the girls and they're already asking us, say, can we play rugby? Can we play rugby? Because the girls have wanted to do stuff other than netball and other sort of archetypal girls sports, but they weren't being allowed to play rugby because the whole full contact, whereas the touch union stuff is just ideal. You can do the running lines, you can run in a 15-a-side running sort of nature, but without the contact session. And then you say, well, if you really like that, you can actually turn up down a club training as well and others, add some extra skills.
Perfect. That's really useful. Thank you for all that detail. Just another question before I pick on somebody else to share. Have you got a set timetable or kind of a structure that you set out and follow week on week as you would maybe plan like a curriculum, or do you do it weekly?
No, the taster session, the very first one was just to gauge. And to be fair, there was it 2 or 3 girls left that session interested enough to turn up to girls training that week. And one of them I saw the other day, she stuck with it, definitely.
Okay.
Then the next stage was to plan when to administer the after school clubs. And then that was sort of that one ad hoc one then to see. Then there was a couple of weeks because they got some other sporting activities that couldn't go on. Then the teacher that has turned up to Touch Union on a Monday, she couldn't do it last week because she had to run a netball thing. But apparently this Thursday it's game on. So it's still a little bit embryonic. And my strategy is to empower the PE teachers to deploy it themselves within the school, because it's just there, it's easy. Touch Union, it's the way forward. I used to say Ready for Rugby was the way forward. Now I say Touch Union is the way forward because it's rebrand.
Perfect, thank you. And then I'd be interested to know kind of if any other clubs as well have been doing something similar at a similar stage about how to get then those players from the school into regularly committed to the club, and how to kind of, I guess, transfer them into a fully fledged club member. Open to the floor. Granville, feel free to jump in if you want, or anybody else.
I mean, well, as you know, Lizzie, I've obviously we met down at Oaks when we launched the academy down there. I've been actually working in the schools now for must be 16, 17 years. So a long time over the schools I've been going into. And it's currently now I'm at a stage where I'm in schools every day of the week, doing curriculum lessons, after schools clubs. I've already got one school that's approached me, and they've booked me for the whole of March next year, cover every year, boys and girls in their school in March. And it's just taken off massively down here at the moment. I'd like to say I've got enough time, hours in the day to get everything done, but at the moment it's getting to the point where I've actually approached a couple of other coaches that I know have got spare time to come on board to help out as well. The girls section itself, just before COVID, we had 30 players. I'm now up to 75. New players, it's just work. It helps because over the years I've worked in all the schools, so I know all the PE staff. So the access to the schools is easy because they move around schools locally, a lot of them. And I'm at the point now where I've mentored a few PE students that have now become heads of PE in local schools. So they're actually coming to me and saying, we want to get girls rugby delivered into the schools. Are you available? 10 years to get into, but obviously one of these PE students took over head of PE, and I've been coaching in there now for 2 years. It's just going really well. I don't know really what else to say apart from, yeah.
Sounds good. Is anybody struggling or got any challenges that they've got at the moment, and have maybe got any questions that they'd like to ask Gordon about what he's just described?
I would have a very quick question.
Yeah.
Our ability to access the schools hasn't been too bad. Going back to what was said by Tony in the beginning, and what was said by others, having kids in the school and being able to approach staff is a very good starting point. And if you can find somebody with an interest in rugby that can champion it within the school, then it's a lot easier to find the key contact, because you've got somebody else that's going to fight the corner for you and take it to the right person. Our issue is that we've got the interest from the schools, but we have nobody within the coaching background at the club that's actually physically available at this moment in time to have the resource to go out into the schools. So we have the idea, we have the commitment from some of the schools, but we're just resource-wise trying to work out how we can take it to the schools, because we don't actually have any coaches at this moment in time available. Any volunteer coaches, everybody's working full time, so we don't have anybody that can actually step into the schools to deliver it. So that's our pain point. To be fair,
I've got a similar problem where I'm coaching. I'm currently providing coaching into local schools, doing curriculum time and after school, but it's just me. I've got no additional coaches to help out. I'm almost being used as an additional teacher, not being paid for doing curriculum time. That's what I'm finding at the minute. They're asking me to go in every day and do curriculum for different classes, and I'll find the teacher will disappear for the whole lesson and leave me out there with the kids, which isn't great. And after school club again, some of the schools I'll be given a register of pupils who are supposed to be attending and left to carry on. So I'm basically unpaid babysitter for an after school club for the kids. I'm doing it because I want the kids to play rugby. The majority of them want to be there, want to progress and want to learn.
Does it translate to numbers at the club or not?
We're almost at a point where we've got everyone in those schools now. It's just where we're waiting for the new intake to actually come in, and we can progress those through.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. So I'm virtually committed every day into local schools, and it's time wise, it's difficult to do, and I can't find anybody else within our club environment to actually help me out at the moment. They're just not willing to commit to it.
I know I'm probably equally as guilty, because the amount of stuff that I'm doing volunteer-wise between the club and the referee society now, it's starting to, you find it's work is getting in the way of that, and as opposed to the other way round. But you've definitely got to be very strong on what is the objective and what is the strategy, and what it is you're willing to do in that bargain, that partnership. So as I was explaining before, we've got 4 secondary schools, and I don't mind doing the legwork at the beginning to broker the deals and get the foot in the door, and then show the PE teachers that actually this is quite straightforward, or on the occasion support them. But it's got to switch to that, where, especially with, again, banging on about the touch union format, it is simple, straightforward, which any one of them can deliver. And once they realise they can deliver it, they'll fill their boots. Obviously,
I'm struggling at the minute with, say, the teachers not jumping on board. I've been doing CPD sessions with them, showing them that how to progress through from playing just simple games of rugby-orientated games right through to touch, and then into almost adapted touch games where you're doing a minimal amount of contact within that. And they're all saying, yes, it looks good, it looks wonderful. And then they're not really progressing, taking it on themselves. They're
Jonathan,
much rather I came in and did it than actually do it themselves.
Do you have no two-touch set up near you?
No. Our local O2 touch is well, we're based in Minor, which is West Somerset. The nearest O2 touch is probably Bristol, which is 50 miles away.
Not too.
I think the major problem here is that I mean, we used to, at our club, we used to get it with parents. They'd drop their children off, and then off they'd go, like for training wise, off they'd go to the shop or the gym or whatever, and you was running a creche. And it's the same with the teachers. I think the teachers are happy to go, there's the register, you crack on, and they'll go in and do work that they should be doing at another stage. I mean, yeah, but also they probably are fearful that because rugby is this contact sport and this litigious society we live in, they're probably frightened to do it anyway. But as Granville was saying, touch union, it's no problem at all. But I think it's got to be a two-way street. If you're there doing after schools clubs, the teachers have got to be out there with you. No teachers with you, no club.
The in-school stuff, the way it was explained to me by the head of PE in the first school is there is, in fact, no, I think it was the RFU Schools Union guy I was talking to, that Dave Lauren introduced me to. And there is this thing where if they can get like an expert, a coach in to deliver a particular lesson in school, then that does free the teacher up to then go off and do other work.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that when I've done it, the teachers have actually stayed to observe. Whether that's because it was a girls group rather than a boys group, I don't know. So, but after school, but yeah, I would expect, you know, unless it was something that you championed totally yourself and they said, all right, fill your boots, but you're on school premise, so they've got some responsibility. And it's how much do you give of yourself and allow that to happen? You know, if you otherwise you can just end up, you know, and it's the same with the relationship with the other coaches in the school. Like the one tomorrow, it's a mixed session, it's boys, we're targeting year 10 boys. Well, I want the under 15s coach with me because actually it's to help him.
Absolutely.
He's got to be in on it. And I ain't going to do that week in, week out for him. It's merely I'm brokering the deal and give them the confidence to just crack on with it. And that's why you just got to keep it simple. Absolutely. Don't go beyond what their capabilities.
Lizzie, there was this has come up before in a previous conversation where exactly what you just described, Jonathan, was happening, where there was a volunteer who was giving time to the school, and the school was, for want of a better word, abusing it, and that wasn't translating really to numbers at the club, and it was unfair. And it was if you could, Lizzie, if you could reach out to the Southwest RFU rep, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He took note of what that guy did, and what the guy did was really successful. I can't remember for the life of me what it was, but he had a strategy that translated. It meant that he could disengage a little bit from the schools. They did the heavy lifting, and there were more numbers at the club. Sorry, I can't remember the detail, but someone will have that
That's all right.
from the Southwest.
Darren,
Can I just go back? Can I go back to the comment about the teachers stepping away and leaving the coaches with the kids? Realistically, we're on school grounds, and even go back to safeguarding. When we do the safeguarding courses, if a kid needs to go to the toilet, there's 2 volunteer coaches that should be going, so the adult is not left alone with the child. I would have thought we shouldn't be the ones that should be put in that position by the school, and the school should have a teacher or somebody from the school there during the coaching session. I would have thought that there quite possibly is a school breaking their own safeguarding policy by doing that.
Yeah.
I did forget to mention that I had to bring my DBS certificate, and I got to bring it tomorrow as well. And at the Bicester School, there were a smattering of girls that were from the club as well, that happened to be in the year group. So they helped us out as mentors as well within the group. But yeah, like I said, the teacher never actually left us on that occasion.
Yeah, no, it's just if the teachers are leaving you alone, if something happens with those kids, then I'm not too sure whose safeguarding policy it is that would. I mean, it's maybe not specific to the meeting we're having now, but it's maybe something to be aware of and discuss with the schools if you're being left alone with the kids.
Yeah, definitely, Darren. I would put that back on to the school in terms of what's their safeguarding policy for volunteer coaches, or even if you're a paid coach going in, there's sort of safeguarding responsibility on the school to support you. And like you said, if you're left with 14 students and one needs to go off or there's an injury, then you're left in a really difficult position, and that's unfair on you. It might just be a case of that your contact at the school hasn't really explained the situation with the rest of the staff. He's just said, well, they've just said, we've got someone coming in from the local club to deliver a session. That's great. And the teachers don't understand the context behind it. So I would have another conversation with whoever your contact is at the school. Say, look, I'm finding myself in a difficult position here because you leave me on my own. How do we get around this? Appreciate teachers have got other things to do. Is there any ways we can get some sixth form students down the road, or students down to help that are looking to do their Young Leaders Awards or Duke of Edinburgh Awards, So you can start to link in that way. And even if the teachers have to be there, they got to support you. I've done it as a CRC back many years ago, and I was left outside and I'm told the school that I can't come in unless I have someone with me. And it's a difficult choice, but ultimately you don't want to be left in a difficult situation where someone's injured, you got to leave them, or someone goes to the toilet and then doesn't come back because they've left because they wasn't enjoying the session. It's unfair on them to put you in that situation. But
even worst case scenario, you have a kid that decides to, you know, says such and such was said, you've got no context, you've got nobody to back you up, or to, you know, nobody deserves to be put, you know, in a position.
We got a couple of safeguarding tutors and leads with our team, so I'll talk to them and see if there is any guidance or any support in terms of what we can help you guys when going into schools in terms of setting some guidelines out, because it is a current thing, isn't it? Like you said, I've experienced it, and it's having that difficult conversations to say to the teacher, that these are my expectations of you from a school to look after your students ultimately, regardless of me coming in on DBS checked and all good. Actually, you should be looking after your students after school still.
And it just takes a little bit of pressure off us as volunteer coaches going into the schools as well. Maybe it helps that the teachers get more involved in the sessions because they've got no choice. They have to be there. They can't step back, which potentially helps as well for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got any current challenges that they're facing? Any questions they want to throw out to the floor? Where we've kind of been discussing this for about 20 minutes or so now, but hopefully you're feeling like it's valuable. Obviously you are all at different stages, so you can sort of bounce things off each other. Any more? No, perfect. So that takes us into our next discussion. I won't bother flashing the slides up and then back down again, but now kind of thinking about the next step going forward. Happy to be led by you guys again. What actions do you need to take to move your partnership along? What can we help you with? What kind of support might you be looking for from both the RFU and a CB perspective that we can offer? So happy to throw it open, or I can pick on you and we can go around the screens, but you know, we are in a smaller group, so any support that you're looking for, what are your next steps? What's the kind of next milestone, I guess, in your partnership? Have we all got perfect school links?
Can I ask a question that might drive the conversation? Yes. Hopefully in the way you want to drive it, and if it's the wrong direction, then I apologize.
It doesn't matter.
What's the main impact that everybody wants to get out of going to the schools? I mean, am I right in thinking that the majority of the impact is to introduce rugby and get more kids at various different age groups coming into the clubs? Would that be a fair first point?
Yeah.
So
for me, certainly. So so I'm from Cornwall. We're in a kind of a backwater. We have a very disparate collection of clubs. The clubs are really struggling for lots of reasons to gain and maintain numbers, especially in the 13s and 15s. So for me, I feel as we're the largest club in Cornwall. We've grown from 6 members in September 2019 to 56 now, and we've become a centre of gravity, and so it's become incumbent on us to try and at a kind of strategic level try and support all girls rugby throughout the whole region, which is a huge cross to bear, and one that we want to kind of drive on. But yeah, so there's the tactical, just bringing kind of girls in, but then there's the making it an attractive sport in a nurturing, enjoyable environment, so other girls recognise that it can be done. And this is girls from all over the county. So yeah, that's the challenge for us, is twofold, really. Yeah.
Also, I concur with Henry's view. We are way out in Cornwall. But our biggest problem with girls, we can get girls, and most clubs have got girls playing for them. However, the numbers are very small at each club. I know that, I think that Truro, you're getting some good numbers now, Henry, eh? And
yeah, but it's only in the 18s, right? So
yeah,
so 13 to 15s are still kind of 6, 7, 8 maybe.
Yeah, and that's our big problem, and most clubs are like that. So the girls never actually get competitive games. All we do is pitch up and play. But I do have an issue on whether or not this is the right forum to bring it up in. I think that the RFU went wrong when back in the day when mixed rugby finished at under 12s. The girls then went straight into under 15s. There was only 2 age groups. There was under 15s and under 18s. And it seemed to work really well. But I think somebody probably somewhere thought we'll try and attract more girls in and maybe some new girls into play. So we'll introduce this new age band, the under 11s. And what happened is that the girls who've been playing right through and into the under 15s, they were great, but now they've got to go into an under 13s. They're almost stepping back a year in their development and their growth because they've already been and done that. And they're almost back to being the same rules as under 11 boys. That's my big problem here, is I think this the 3 age bands in the girls I don't think work.
I believe it's being reviewed, and I believe it's being discussed this month in terms of going to subcommittee at council to what they're planning for future and that. So I haven't seen any detail in terms of what the suggestion is yet, but I know it's
It's under 12s, under 14s, under 16s, and under 18s now. The coach of the girls posted it earlier.
Okay, so it's coming out slowly then. Okay.
So then going back to the question, so the main impact is to try and drive more people into the clubs. So Tony, you talked about giving free mouth guards out, but what other aspects are people using as a way to drive the school's interest to the club? I mean,
used boots. We all the secondhand boots that we collected, and we did a boot drive for that. So the girls, and I think the gum shields is a great call as well. And it's like, what do we need? And we're not a very wealthy county, so we have a lot of quite impoverished people, and they need to know that they don't need to go out and buy their daughter the latest kit. They can actually count on the club to provide. We have a mountain of shoes. I mean, like, people are just just left dozens and dozens of pairs. So yeah.
I don't think we're a great deal different, to be fair, which people take advantage of on a season by season basis. One of the things, there's 2 things we've driven, and actually, Grant, but one of the things we're driving is something that Bicester are doing, which we're using as a touch point for the schools, and I don't know if you're already using it, which is the funding for players from a financial perspective, if there's any issues that Bicester are putting in place.
You're on about funding for kids players? Or,
well, I don't know whether you're using it for kids or for senior players as well, or whether it's just for senior players.
Oh, right. I think I know what you mean. Oh, because Craig was on the last call, wasn't he? So Craig, who's the secretary of the club, he knows where to find money under sofas, under mattresses. He got the funding for community rugby, so that basically the touch union club on a Monday, hiring out the 4G quarter pitch every Monday for the next year. It's all funded. So all you got to do is rock up.
Well,
so those sort of things, and there's a support fund for club members.
That's the part that I'm talking about. The support.
Yeah,
the
so
support
if they can't afford their membership, they can anonymously apply to the fund and get support. So he knows where to find all this because he's had political experience.
Yeah. So that's the side of it I thought works really well and ties really well in with the schools, because the schools know exactly who the low income families are, who the children are, and they get funding with regards to the free school meals. And if the kids are getting free school meals, they get additional funding for educational needs, whether that be a theatre trip, that be anything that can help improve or give them the same opportunity that any other child in the school can have. And I think without knowing that sort of funding is potentially something that the schools can actually drive children and families back to the club, because it opens up the access to the clubs. If the club have a fund like that available that they can take advantage of, that allows people otherwise that don't think that they can't afford the opportunity or registration fees at a club to actually have that ability to turn up every weekend and play. And I would say that our club, like many other clubs, probably have volunteer coaches who have at one point or another probably put registration fees in for a kid at some point, because they know that otherwise they're going to lose that kid because they can't afford the fees. Yeah. So I think that fund that Bicester are doing definitely worth potentially mentioning, because if it's something that other clubs can help set up, I know it's something we're talking about setting up as well, because it just is an ideal way. It gives back to the community, it brings more people back into the club, and it also allows the schools to, they're the ones that have the access and have the ability to refer those people and get them involved, which I think could work very, very well for everybody involved. I think it's worth mentioning.
Can I ask a question of everybody, if that's okay, please?
Yeah.
Do you find, are you grouped as just the girls section, or are you layered out so you have the under 13s, the under 15s, the under 18s? Do you have individual time slots, or are you all bunched together?
We train together as a group.
Right. So you're seen by the club as one section.
Yeah.
So do you have to share kit?
I've actually now got our own store where we store our own kit.
Okay. Yeah.
So we've got an Acorn store where all the boys' kit is, and I've got another store separate now, which we're just building the stock up in there, where we've got our own kit stored.
Okay. So I suppose what I'm driving at is that I was as supportive as Truro have been, and they have been very supportive. There is still this, the girls will be training in this period, and everyone else gets their own time slot and their own kit and their own outfits and all that, and we've had to kind of scrabble around the edges to get what we need. And I often think that maybe that lack of individual age group identity is hurting recruitment as well.
We've been there, Henry, in that boat where you're at the moment, where we've scraped around, we've had hand down kits from the boys and all sorts. But over the years now, the work that's gone in, and I've kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and actually the committee at the club are actually brilliant now. They can't do enough at the moment to help build the girls section. They just see the growth, how it's growing, and I can pretty much go and say, look, this is what I want to do, and they're saying yes, and they're supporting it all the way. But it's taken a while to get there. Just on my point, recruitment-wise, what I'm doing at the moment, because obviously we've got quite a few clubs around that are building girls sections now, I'm actually putting together a flyer of all the local clubs in their contacts, because obviously depending on where the players live is where their local club is, and then obviously they've got the choice where they want to go. So my aim going forward is just to give them this flyer with every club's details. I'm saying, look, these are the clubs that have got girls sections. Choose which one's nearest to you or which one you want to go to. So I'm not actually going in just purely for Oaks. My aim is to get as many girls playing rugby as I can. I don't care where they play, as long as they're playing rugby.
Just it's a really good kind of initiative to kind of link with those other clubs to kind of promote other options for girls. Like you said, sometimes travel arrangements don't work to come to you. I know you said it's like you kind of grown from like the 40-ish numbers to the 70. How have you done that? It'd be really good to hear how you kind of grown those numbers.
Purely, to be honest, is going into the schools and coaching, and then what we've arranged is into schools games down at the rugby club.
Cool. And then when you've had those games at the club, what have you put on?
Food, usual things. We treat them, we welcome them. They use the changing rooms. We have the games. We have a joint training at the beginning where they all get a bit of training together. Then we go into round robin matches, finish the matches, and they go and have some food.
Cool. And then how do you gauge your parents? Because they're kind of they're the main ones you kind of have to get interested. Do you do anything different with them, or?
we have a couple of people around that can answer questions. Obviously, when the children are having their food, any parents that are there, we say, look, if any parents got any questions, need any further information, come over and talk to us. Obviously, while the kids are busy eating, we're talking to the parents, and it's just to engage them.
Yeah, mate, it's exactly that, isn't it? Because and I was speaking from experience in terms of run a school competition at a club. It's great, they get the free food and everything like that, but ultimately the parents are the ones that are going to be like, oh, actually, yeah, you can come here, or actually we can afford this, or I'm not too sure. So like you say, engaging with those parents to kind of break down those barriers and make them feel comfortable, and that you're engaging, that it's going to be fun for their kid, and that's kind of the next barrier, isn't it?
Yeah, free tea, free coffee, free biscuits, just.
And a word of mouth is key, isn't it? It's that once one parent kind of gets another parent talking, and they then start spreading around their group of actually how good it is down there, how much their child's enjoying the environment, and that it kind of spreads. You can't beat word of mouth compared to social media. So that's what I'm trying to pick up on, is growing those numbers by engaging the parents. And then
word of mouth at the moment is fantastic. At the moment, the word that's going around and being bounced about is the setup we got there is what they call a family environment, and it's where we've got kids that really enjoying being there and can't wait. And we've had troublesome kids at schools where the PE teachers have come back and said, since that child has taken up rugby, they have changed. They're complete character.
It's great, amazing. Like you said, the first barrier is kind of getting that right contact, getting into school, definitely. Doing all that, and then you kind of, well, actually, how am I going to get into the club now? Because that's the next challenge. I know there's a few ticking at that next stage. It's just trying to link up the good work that you're doing and kind of sharing the ideas. Anything that you would do different with that engagement at the club, with the school? Anything you might try to do different?
And sorry, if I could just chip in there, it's Mark Taylor here from Milton Keynes, and just to echo what Gordon said, that's been absolutely our route as well, and certainly in recent years, and certainly up until COVID. And funny enough, there's one tomorrow actually for the under-16s boys. But Milton Keynes is made up of of state schools. We don't have grammars. We have one in Buckingham, and obviously then out into Aylesbury. But clearly we're heavily dependent on their curriculum, and it's typical secondary school curriculum. So for all the challenges I've heard earlier on, using the club as a medium to run tournaments, because actually all of the heads of PE do talk, and actually we, whilst we struggle to get in and run individual clubs or classes at the schools, there is engagement with the club when it means that we can facilitate and putting that lunch on, that bit of food on for the kids, and also getting the parents up there and watching it, and then handing out a few very simple leaflets has really paid dividends. And so alongside my other role as the vice chair, I also lead our under-16s boys, and I've benefited from the fact that my lad and 2 or 3 of the other lads that are part of the regular squad, as it were, have been in the schools where actually some of their mates have been playing in the tournaments and have then subsequently gone on to join my own age group. I've benefited from, and I still actually hold 2 or 3 of the lads that have joined us in the last 2 years because of a school tournament, and they are now regulars of our squad. And likewise for several schools within Milton Keynes where that has also happened. The key thing for us has been for people to see the facility. We went through a move 10 years ago. People didn't actually know where the club was, and Milton Keynes isn't the easiest at times. But those sorts of things are really, really key. It's engagement with the parents as well. And if you can provide that as a rugby club, that on top of their school might be the one thing that they are looking for their son or daughter to do, that actually allows them to join up with a club and feel that sense of rugby value, which is something that we also deliver as part of all of that as well. So we've been really successful with that. I know Dan Pearson, and I'm not sure whether Dan or David was on the previous call, but Dan's worked really hard on that. We've actually paused our girls section for a while now, based on the number of the issue with numbers, but we're looking to bring that in now that we've got a new ladies team that have started. We're looking to reintroduce girls in the next sort of year or two, so that we can start the plan for feeding the ladies team going forward. So again, that's part of our strategy then, to re-engage with the schools in the next 2 years.
I mean, on that note, with the young men, well, I contracted a couple of they were just aging out of Colts, and I got a couple of them, my son included, and a couple of his mates, to come along and help with the coaching. And having that youth, I mean, I would much prefer we'd have female coaches. That would have been great, and we're working towards that. But having that youthful aspect where not only, you know, were the girls getting good quality and up to date, certainly more up to date than my training, up to date information, that they would then go on to some of them explore at the academy at Truro College. But they were people, you know, roughly their same age or a couple of years older, and that made a big difference. And whether it was that they, you know, like the look of them or whatever, I don't really care. But it worked certainly. And
you're right, Henry, and I think it is peer-to-peer is massive in this as well. And you know, I'm not going to be all bashful like everyone is here. You know, we're all coaches. We do our very, very best to ensure that all of our, you know, lads or girls, you know, are having a great experience. But I think, you know, I'm proud of the fact that I've been with my group of lads since they were 7. They're now 16. And actually, I've still got a core of the original lads that are very much part of my squad now. I run a squad of 25, but actually the power of those, you know, in my case, boys talking to their mates at school continues to bring, you know, lads into my squad. In fact, I've got 2 new starters this season already. And, you know, and that's that peer-to-peer thing, creating that buzz in the school environment. Then that's the other thing that I guess is the less tangible measure of what we do as well, because if you're creating that buzz, they then go to school and talk to their mates about it, and that also creates that link in, if that makes sense as well. And that's the bit that we probably can't measure and never will, but that's something that we probably don't think about much as individual coaches, but it's something that I think we should probably give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back for at times as well, because that's the environment we create.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. I know, Gordon, were you just about to jump in there?
I was just really a couple of other things, obviously, on the work that's gone in the schools. What we've got running now is an annual under 13, under 15 girls competition, which we were due to run last year before COVID hit, which we've now rescheduled for March next year. We've also got a year 7 and 8 boys festival as well. And the plan is going forward is to have, because that a lot of girls missed that year because of COVID, we're going to run an under 18 sevens tournament as well. But on the coaching side, with regards to more females, I've been coaching the girls section now, must be 16 years, and obviously it's always been male dominant. I'm now at this point where I've got 8 coaches, including myself, of which 5 are females. 2 of those are ex-players that I coached when they were 13 years old that have now come back and want to put something back into the club. And that in itself is massive, because they're talking to the girls about their experience of when they first turned up and how things went when they first turned up, to what it can feel like, so they can understand when the girls turn up for that first session how nervous they can be. And they're brilliant talking to the girls and saying, I was in your shoes once and I felt exactly how you feel, and it just calms them down. But as I say, things that are going, so we potentially got another female coach on board as well, and we've come a long way from 2 male coaches now to virtually having a coaching team of 9, of which 6 will be female.
Yeah.
Great point. Thanks, Gordon. Anybody else have anything they want to share? Any sort of next steps? I know, kind of going back to what Darren was speaking about in terms of access and I guess affordability of rugby. Looking at Gordon, sorry to put you on the spot again, and Mark as well, in terms of what have you guys been able to do to just kind of make sure you've got quite a few girls there, so how do they get that accessibility?
We know that within the club itself, they've got they've got their own little, it's not really a fund, is what we call it, is a bit of a scholarship. If we know we've got someone in, because we speak to the schools and are generally in that poverty state, we just offer them a scholarship for the year. Their kit's paid for, their membership's paid for, because the aim is we don't want anybody to miss out purely for financial reasons, because there's lots of people out there in that situation. But I know I'm aware that some schools I'm working in, because I'm doing a lot of work in deprived schools at the moment, so a lot of work with deprived kids, and I know the PE staff are talking to me about the fact that they've got access to a fund within their school that if they can't afford and they want to, I can go back to them and say, look, we've got this player from your school that wants to join us, but they physically can't afford it financially. And then we come up to some sort of agreement about what they're going to pay towards her coming.
Completely agree with that, Gordon. And we're the same. We don't have a formal policy quite, as such, but we, for people where there are genuine issues, we will support their membership. We will waive the fee, whatever it is, to make sure that, in fact, we had one lad, who was, beneficiary of that a couple of seasons ago, actually, particular sort of circumstances for him. But yeah, I think it's little things as well, like, on top of waiving their fees and just covering and discreetly giving them the odd bit, of kit and stash or whatever, if we've got a new piece, so that they absolutely feel part of it. We also dispose of our old kits. We replace our kit probably like most clubs do, every 3 years or so, because it's, and we've just done the same this year, but we dispose of all of our kits for everyone in the club or we will give away kits to the school as part of a competition as well. So again, it builds the brand within the town itself. But and two schools have benefited from having our previous kits, and so that's one thing that we do. But also we sell off all of our old kit very simply, for a tenner a shirt or something, and they will, and this isn't old rubbish. I mean, anything that is not wearable clearly goes in the recycling bin. These are properly laundered shirts that, are fully usable, in many cases reversible, and actually just giving kids kit, goes an awful long way. Going and buying a rugby shirt is not cheap, for a lot of people. And, so just giving away our kit means that, we maintain our brand, through simple things like when, the lads are all training and they need, perhaps 2 tops a week, because we're doing two sessions and you're washing and, there's dirt and filth and all the rest of it in the winter. So, it's little things like that make the difference. But also, like, as we say, those meals and the hot dogs for the younger ones and stuff like that, they're, again, we can't put a price on that. It's a big part of what we do. And, I helped out with the under-8s this last week, and, the madness, it was like herding mountain goats when we were feeding them the hot dogs at the end, but it was brilliant. And that's exactly what they will, and that might be the one thing that they look forward to. So, again, the club funds all of that as well, as I'm sure every club does. But it's a small thing that, again, reinforces the value of what we do into the schools and also to the kids, who maybe need that little bit of extra from the club as well.
I mean, another thing we're actually just looking into, we're going to do a trial one over this next half term, is we're going to be running multi-skill sessions. For the one we're going to be running this week is basically for years 5 to years 9s. We're going to run a purely girls one to begin with, a complete free one, where they'll come along to multi-skills, but also learn a life skill. So I think the plan is possibly on this one is they learn how to use a defibrillator. So each course they'll have a multi-skill that do lots of sport, but also learn a life skill. And the long-term plan is to make that sort of a day activity, but we're just doing a 2.5-hour one, completely free to local schools. So we put out to all the schools in the deprived area to push out to the kids. If you're in years 5 to 9 and you want 2.5 hours worth of multi-skills, come on down. And the plan is obviously to make it a full day. They get a lunch provided as well, because we are aware that obviously a lot of people in deprived areas don't necessarily always have a nice hot meal each time. So when we do them going forward, it's going to include a meal as well.
And of course, also not forgetting on the multi-skill thing, because I'm a firm believer in all of the defib stuff as well. But the, linking in, connecting with the Duke of Edinburgh stuff that the kids are doing, whether it's the volunteering side or the physical activity side, there's a lot of the kids that do, the sports leadership BTECs and things that actually they need some examples of where they've helped, in the club, or they've been involved with, working with one of the younger age groups, to help assist a coach or something. So all of those things, again, just coaches taking just that extra 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, just to sign a few of the D&E forms. As I do now, we've had, I think about 6 lads that have done the bronze awards, and we've got 2 that are doing the silver award now with our own individual schools. And again, it's just that those sorts of things go a long, long way to, building and supporting. And in our case, I did get some feedback once that, a couple of years ago, that, when I was supporting the application for kids who were joining the Silverstone Technical College, where they go off and they can do their GCSEs or their A-level equivalents there. But I built up a really good, link with the registrar there, who was saying that, she said, just your letter, that you send to support the application of, the child that is going into that school was just so much more in depth than we get from a lot of sports, where, as she said, it was just really good, where you were advocating what they did, you were talking about the skills that they could bring and all those sorts of things. So it's just little things like that just that attention to detail on behalf of those players, as they go into those sorts of colleges, again, it just builds really good links with the schools as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. I'm aware that we've just kind of gone a little bit over the hour that was designated for this. Just before I wrap up, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity just to share anything else, any other questions that you might have with each other. Henry, you had?
Yeah, so Gordon, who was the guy from Milton Keynes who was on one of the previous meetings?
I know who you mean, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah, so
it'll be Dan Pearson probably, or
Dan. Yeah, okay, so it was Dan was the guy, and so what Gordon and Milton Keynes have done with that, what Gordon's done with the outreach to the schools and then bringing them into the club. That was the key. They brought to the club for the competitions, and that's what translated the all work at the schools into club members. That's what I remembered. So you don't have to look it up, Lizzie. Sorry, I eventually got there.
No, that's all right.
Chaps, I have to go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It's just about to wrap up anyway. Perfect. If it's all right, you guys, what I might do is share your contact details with each other. So just copy you in rather than blind copy. Everyone all right with that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. It was kind of a bit of a new format, a drop in rather than, slides, but hopefully you found it useful just to kind of connect, ask questions, etc. Ben and I have been scribbling away, so we'll send you the slides and a bit of a follow-up. And yeah, just best of luck. Use your local club developer, and keep using each other as well. So hopefully that was useful for you guys, and thank you so much for sharing. It was really, really beneficial. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all soon. No worries. Take care, everybody.
Take it easy.
Thank you. Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks, Ben. Cheers, everybody.
Yes, bye-bye now.
Bye.
Lizzie, just in the background, sorry,
Yeah,
would you mind sending me the original slides from the first session as well, please?
Yeah, of course. I'll pop them in the follow-up. I'll just send a whole lovely array of documents so you can scroll.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Through. No
Cheers,
worries.
Ben. Thank you.
Cheers, Mark.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Chris. Is there anything that we can follow up? Is there anything that we can help with? Might be away from his screen. Should we stop the recording?
Yeah.